Is this the end of life, or the cue for a new beginning? Millions believe in reincarnation. Is there proof it really happens? Do people pass through many lifetimes? And can they bring back memories of having lived before? It's 350 years since the bloody battles of the English Civil War. But this man says he remembers fighting in them. And therapies now encourage people to relive the violent moments of their death in previous lives. But what can be known for certain? Scientists are trying to assess the evidence from those who claim to have lived before. Will they prove the case for reincarnation and reveal what brings those memories to the human mind?
Broadcasting live from the dark and cold dungeons deep beneath the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prepare yourselves to be taken away into another dimension as we now have control over your thoughts, fears, and perspective of the unexplained world you dare not speak of. With your hosts, Lindsay Knight and Michael Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the gates to the paranormal and beyond.
Broadcasting live from the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is the Paranormal and Beyond. Do you believe in past lives? It has been said that when we die in this world, we are given a choice to come back and relive it all over again if we choose to do so. But is there something and such thing as reincarnation? When we return, we will discuss all aspects pertaining to past life regression and see how far back one's soul can really be. And it's all right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV, 1230 AM.
Your ticket to the unknown is at KnightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at KnightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. Knights with a K, ParanormalResearchSociety.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Knights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at KnightsParanormalResearchSociety.com, you're going to believe. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knights Paranormal Research Society.com. This is the Paranormal and Beyond. Call us at 731-1230. Here again, Lindsay and Michael.
Welcome back to another brand new and hypnotizing edition of the Paranormal and Beyond. But first, Be sure to check us out at Knights Paranormal Research Society.com, where you can catch up to all the past shows by simply clicking on that archive link above. That's Knights Paranormal Research Society.com. Ever want to be an actor and be on the big screen? Well, you can start by doing so by logging on to HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Once again, that's HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Special shout out to all those listening online through the KLAV 1230am.com website, and all those driving around in your cars listening to us on your stereos. God bless all of you. How you doing, Lindsay?
Tired.
That's great to know. That's why we have some great coffee here in the studio. Wake you up. Got a big trip for you tomorrow. Today, by the way, is my birthday. This would be probably 3 years on the Paranormal and Beyond on radio. I think I've celebrated twice. I've landed twice. You know, days vary. And not really what I want to do on my birthday, but hey, great topic, because we're going to talk about past life regression, the whole hypnotizing thing, and past lives going back, like how far, because I know we all have came and incarnated at some time.
So you're agreeing to that then?
I am, but I have theories on it. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to go through it with like an open-minded person, but really like bring out a lot of epiphanies that will spring up in a lot of listeners tonight, because I see it from different angles than just head on.
Well, you know, I do want to get our engineer Ryan's opinion on this, because I know that he has a different view, or if so, I think, on reincarnation, and I'd like to get his opinion later on tonight.
Oh, we'll do that. But first, let's get right into the news.
Topping the news for the Paranormal and Beyond, we're actually going to segue from the news because we have a special announcement. It is Michael Knight's birthday, and we have something that we are about to do.
Oh my God. All right, that's the first I've ever got of that. I didn't even know that was going on, but thank you very much for that.
Okay, so back to topping the news on the bizarre. 58-year-old Michael Pierre from New York is living a terrified existence, as a blast from the past is repeating itself on a daily basis. Too afraid to flush the toilet, he fears he won't live to see another day. Not too long ago, Michael Pierre was blown away when his toilet exploded, leaving him needing 30 stitches to his face, arms, and legs. Pierre was struck with hundreds of shards of porcelain when he was checking the water pressure in his New York apartment. The shock of the blast knocked him unconscious. 3 more toilets in the building actually exploded soon after, leaving an unwanted shower and mess. Mr. Pierre is now so scared and has a phobia against toilets that his fear has succumbed him to actually stand behind the door every time he wants to use the bathroom and use a rope to flush the toilet. He is now seeking compensation from the building. Reporting the news for the Paranormal and Beyond, this is Lindsay Knight.
Very quick news. Once again, thank you for that birthday surprise. I'm still waiting for the envelope with the money, guys, so that will shock me even more. All right, let's get into our main topic of discussion, and this is the whole past regression, hypnotizing, putting one under a spell, so to say. And is there like do people really get hypnotized? Because first, I want to get into the whole thing, the way I look at it, and probably the way a lot of other people look at it than, you know, like I said, looking at head on with the whole thing. Well, we have hypnotism itself, all right? It's been going on for years. But one thing about it, just like when it comes to psychics, it became a novelty thing. We all know in Las Vegas, a lot of people who are on the main stage have hypnotist shows where they put a crowd of people under and they act like a duck or bark like a dog. But came to further research, all that is a farce. All those people who are actually under the spell are actors who they switch out and are part of the show. So it's kind of bummer to hear that. And see, stuff like that has an effect when it comes to the real science behind hypnotist and the whole art of hypnotizing itself. Then, and I compare that to like psychics, okay? In Las Vegas, I don't know if you all know this, in order to practice to be a psychic, you have to be certified. I don't get that. I mean, what do they do for a test for a psychic? Are you going to go in there and take a test of course you're going to pass it.
On your
you're
psyche?
Because you're a psychic, you're already going to know the answers. I don't get it. And that it's another thing that kind of destroys the rapport when it comes to actual investigation into the supernatural itself.
Well, I think because a lot of these psychics are practicing psychics, and and you have to have a business license. But I understand what you're saying, that it's just like a medical doctor. You have to have some kind of a license in order to practice that kind of medicine, to help people. So with psychics, it's true. It's like, do they go in there with an IQ test and come out saying, okay, yes, you're 100% certified?
See, and that's the whole thing. When I'm doing research on a topic like this, me being a near-deather, that's one who has had a near-death experience, I take it personally to the whole extent that when I see stuff like this where people are charging me, and you take something that is so pure and honest to science, and then you make it into a 3-ring circus and start charging money for it, then it depletes what you're really doing. And so I take offense in this. So we're going to talk about past lives. I do believe in past lives. I want to talk about why we can't remember. I want to talk about limitations. I want to talk about your subconscious, what it is, and basically give you an idea. And I'll tell you right now, 98% of the human populations had been hypnotized, whether it's self-hypnosis, they have been. They know what it feels like to be hypnotized. They've been there before, but they just don't know they're doing it. And let me get to that right now, all right? Ryan, you with me, buddy?
And it's funny because I think I know where you're going with this.
Ryan, would you say you've been hypnotized?
I think depending on how you define hypnotize, I would say, yeah. I think I've definitely worked myself up into a frenzy where I've been really tunnel vision. I've kind of tuned out the entire rest of the world around me.
Okay, when I talk about being hypnotized, I'm not talking about full-blown unconscious. There's so many states of consciousness.
Right.
All right. When I say, oh, that guy's unconscious, what are they thinking? Probably he's knocked out. He's not home in his head. All right. When it comes to hypnotizing somebody, it all goes to the hypnotist. Like I said, we were talking earlier before the show, and you're like, you have to have a rapport. It takes two to tango to get into that state. However, I'm going to bring it up. Like I said, 98% of the public has been under it before. They just don't realize it. And it's like this. Have you ever zoned out where your ocular vision doesn't work no more? You're just staring off in the distance. You're not thinking.
Right.
You're just in the zone. Nothing is clicking in your head. You don't know what you're looking at. All your bodily functions just stop. But if somebody is like, Ryan, are you okay? You're just yes, I'm fine. I'm thinking. But you're not thinking. Your subconscious is talking for you. That's how it feels to be under a hip. You are so relaxed, but at that moment, you just put yourself under a spell. Hence, that's why they call it a trance.
So you think that this is something that's self-induced? It's not coming from an outside?
Well, it's like this too. A person who's, let's just say, driving, they don't even think about it anymore, okay? Or swimming, okay? You obviously jump in the water, and it's just like repetitious. You already know what to do without even thinking. Your subconscious pretty much is doing it for you.
Basically, when you are phasing out and you are just staring off into eternity, your eyes, your ocular vision doesn't work. You get blurred. Everything's blurry. You can still hear, but yet you are not really paying attention to who's talking to you, but you can hear what they're saying.
So more you're inside your body than really
it's your
seeing
subconscious
outside.
That's basically the backup of you. You're basically in the zone. There's a difference, okay? When somebody is thinking and they're quiet, they're usually moving their eyes up to the left, to the right, because they're accessing that part of the brain to pick up thoughts and that. But when you're staring off in the distance, that's why they call it a dead stare.
The 1,000-yard stare.
Exactly, because you are not home. You just hypnotize yourself. And when you do that, you can't feel your fingers, you can't feel your arms, you can't feel nothing. You're just sitting there staring off in the distance, practically cut off from everything.
Yes, and you hear people saying, hello,
and, yeah,
are you there?
And sometimes your
like,
subconscious
yes.
answers back, and then when you wake up, they're like, hey, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, nothing. And then you just make up a lie. Oh, I was just thinking of something. When you know very well you were out of it.
Now, what do you think this does to someone?
Well, basically what it does, it just shows you can go under because you did it yourself. Now, when a hypnotist comes into the picture, that's a person who helps you get there because right now you don't realize you're doing it, but now you do. So next time it happens, you can probably put yourself a little bit further and then See, let's get to the subconscious, because you have to be in an unconscious but subconscious state of mind. You have to be in this perfect dance to be able to tap into that subconscious that's not your part of your memory of your brain.
Well,
These are two different
let me
things.
explain what the conscious versus the subconscious is, because just think of your brain like a computer chip. Okay, the subconscious pretty much stores everything from the way, from the day you were born until now. It pretty much stores everything in backup. So everything that you've repressed, all the memories that you still do not recall or you do not remember, things that you forgot about or things that you don't remember how to do, it's there. It's just having to bring it forward.
Your subconscious?
Your subconscious. The conscious is the here and now. So all the emotions, the physical things that you're going through, your conscious pretty much steps in at that moment.
Let me take it further. Okay, your conscious moment we have a memory in our brain, and that records everything from birth and what we do know. You have your subconscious, and this is where they tap in to get the past lives. This is the strong box, the safe you take on through millennia, generations. All right, there is a combination. You have the combination, but guess where that combination's at? It's inside that strong box.
Well, if you
so you don't know how to open it. Sometimes it opens on its own, but you need the help from the hypnotist, if you can't do it yourself, to tap in and get that combination.
See, psychics themselves, when you go to a psychic too, they say you automatically go in there saying, I want to know my future, or I want to know my past. I want to know. Your body and your soul is nothing but pure energy. Okay. Well, not your body, but, you're pretty much just energy. We're all energy, okay? So what the psychic does is they tap into that energy that's inside. When they say they can read your past, that's because they can actually read the energy. Your future, you have free will. What they do, like if you do tarot cards, they can pretty much, your vibration, they can pick up the subconscious of what you're thinking, but you're not bringing to the table.
See, but I'm not all for it when it comes to psychics, because to get a $5 or $20 reading, I don't think if you knew what was going on in the future, you would be working for pennies and nickels. You know what I mean? I mean, Ryan, what's your take on psychics?
I definitely think that there's a lot of hucksters out there that are giving a bad name for the reputation in general of psychics. I'm not sure, would you say that the authentic psychics would be more likely to charge a higher price knowing that their services are genuine than...
Well, here's the thing, okay? When you take the people who charges a lot consider themselves more of a psychic, and then they start meshing the word medium together where they can communicate with the dead. You have John Edwards and all these other people out there who are doing this, and that's a whole different thing. But when I take your average sideshow, psychic, all the way up and down Las Vegas Boulevard, you see those little shops, palm reading and all this. That, to me, that's a little sketchy, because to me, the real psychics, all right, are really called prophets. And these are people who can supersede seeing just what they can see events that go there. You have precognitives that are not charging money, but they could warn you of impending danger. So when you take the money aspect, it becomes more like a gimmick. And psychics make a killing off it because everybody wants answers. They don't know who to turn to. So let me turn to somebody who's going to tell me my future. But what if it's a bad future? Your future's not written in stone. So for me to pay you, Ryan, $20 to tell me what's going to happen in 2 weeks, and I turn around and not do that, but what you told me I was going to get in a car accident, but I turn around and try to avoid, going here, but I end up getting a car accident anyways somewhere else. What's the deal? We don't know really where our fate lies.
Well, a psychic's not really supposed to tell you. I mean, they do. I mean, you got the gimmick.
That is a joke. Oh, I'm not going to tell you that you're going to die. I can't say that. It's the law. You know what I mean? It's a basic cop-out to things you don't know, if you think about it. If I was a psychic and I knew everything, I knew I was going to have with people, you think I'd have a shop on the side of Las Vegas Boulevard doing this? No. I'd be out there doing stuff. Look, let's take Sylvia Brown. How many times she just stepped on her own and made herself look dumb on national TV in front of people?
By the way, she charges over $1,000.
Exactly.
For
it becomes gimmick.
Son.
All right. Her reputation was great in the 80s coming up, but then messed up on Montel Williams so many times that it's basically a joke now. Her books are basically copies of other people's writings and research, and what she does is reinterpret it in her own words now. So it makes her look like the smart one.
Now, do you think somebody should be able to profit off of being a psychic, or do you think it should be an entirely grassroots kind of affair?
Well, see, we live in a society today where everybody is pretty much lost. You notice there's psychics, mystics, clairvoyants popping up all over the place in every freaking corner, just like the liquor store. Back in the day, when you had the Fox sisters back in the 1800s, it was just coming out. You had Madame Blavatsky, who also came out, but it wasn't as popular as it started being in the 1990s, and then all of a sudden now it's all over the place. But I think it has to do with the way that people are, all the children that are growing up today in the society. A lot of people are lost, so they're seeking answers. They don't know who to turn to, so of course they're going to go to a psychic who's going to tell you what you want to know and what you want to hear. Now, is there authentic psychics? I obviously think there are. Now, there's certain psychics that can tell you your future, but I don't think that it's written in stone. Some things, there's, you hear fate and destiny, that some things are unavoidable and can't be changed. But a psychic, I think, I've been to many psychics, and I'll tell you this, I've been to about 13. Yes, I was obsessed at one time. And a lot of them told me my past, and they were correct, and my present, but I think they were reading the vibration of my energy. As far as the future goes, I don't think that's set in stone. I think it's up to me. They can tell me what I can look out for and warn me, but as far as...
It's basically like this, okay? If I had a shoe store, and I was fixing broken shoes, okay? And I was very good at what I do. Fixing soles and all this. Not the soles on the other side. I'm talking about soles on your feet, on your boots. And I did that for a living. And Ryan, Lindsay, you guys walk in my store. I know exactly what you guys need to fix your shoes. It's that easy. Somebody walks into my shop. I'm a psychic. I can read them right off the bat. They have problems. Most likely they have one of the three. Relationship problems.
Career.
All right. Career problems or legal problems. That's it. I'll start poking at you till I found you shake your head yes. Then I'll go off after that and keep on working it till I get it right. And when you leave and give me that $20, you're going to feel like, wow. Okay, even if I gave you your future reading, what's going to happen in the future, you're not there yet. So, like, to me, if somebody's going to tell me my future and it's all doom and gloom, I've been to a site and said, hey, you're going to be rich and do this. I'm still not rich.
But I think that's a part of manifestation, too, and what, the power of thought and what you want. So if somebody's tell you, if a psychic was to say, you're going to be rich in the future, and, you're aiming for that.
I just think it's a bunch of hogwash. When we go that far, like, prophets and mystics are the ones who write a book, they're quiet, then they find their memoirs like Nostradamus and be like, wow, Nostradamus wasn't walking around charging people for readings.
No.
Okay, he was deep and passionate about what he did, that it was free to help humanity. Like paranormal investigations, you have all these people out there charging to find ghosts in their house. That is not what it's supposed to be. You are messing up the repertoire of all those investigators who have our heart and soul really into
Okay,
it.
so let's talk about something else, because there's so many different types of, like not just psychics. Let's talk about numerology for one. Okay, the Chinese, are huge on numerology, astrology. Numerology is supposed to be the most accurate form.
Well, when we talk about numerology, now you're talking about applied science.
Yes,
that's a whole different thing. Okay, when we talk about psychic, you're talking about made up stuff. Okay, you're reaching for the stars and pulling stuff down. All right, but when you talk about numerology, you have a lot of different code. Okay, it's numerology. First of all, is the universal language.
It is.
There's a lot. It's coordinates. It has to do with everything. Okay, it's a binary code. You have it in everything. Computers use the ones and zeros binary code. So numerology actually has a science behind it. Okay, when we talk about psychics, there is no science behind it whatsoever, but a lot of charging of money.
Ryan, your take.
Really, I just have a question. Do you think that there's a presentation that marks someone as more authentic, like with the average everyday psychic? There, well, not average everyday, but just like the huckster. There's the mysticism.
I think it actually, a person can sit here and say, because there's different type. There's so many different types of psychics out there. Some have, supposedly more powers than other. They can see certain things. Again, they can talk to the dead. So forth and so on. But I think it actually depends on each individual and what they believe and who, in that person, what they see.
Here's the thing. When you talk about validity, all right, in any business you run, there's one important thing in business that everybody cares about more than anything. It brings your money. It brings everything. It brings the customers. one thing in business that keeps you going is reputation. That is the only thing. And any good psych out there, it's word of mouth or one hell of an advertising campaign that's going on. But it's more of the reputation upon that one person. Now, when you talk about the limitations, this is all will come into the end what I'm talking about. Okay, there's a limit in everything we do. I don't believe when somebody tells you sky's the limit or you are limitless. You know, you can do anything you want. You have no limit to what you can do. There is always a limit. It's the law of the land. Okay, when I say sky's the limit, yeah, there's a limit. It's the sky. All right, everything. When you dream, and you dream you're flying, even in dreams, and you're flying in your dream, you can never fly past the trees. You are limited even in your dreams. When you want to run away from somebody, you can't run fast. You are limited in your speed in your dreams. Everything is limited. When it comes to past lives, that subconscious limits you to remembering your other past lives. Because if you did, now I'm going to compare this to other people who have chosen to come back. We have people who have chosen to come back many, many, many times over again. But what happens to these people when they come back so often? They get limited, and they get limited by the body they incarnate to. Either there is a physical disability, either it's mental, but these people are considered autistic savants. They are the smartest people who can compose music, mathematical, but there's a limit. You just can't come back and keep incarnating without having a limit set upon you. It is said that people incarnate to get things right.
Well, the purpose of reincarnation, in different religions, there's different theories behind it, but the main purpose that has been said, and I'll put this in the front burner, is that, you come back here, you want to be closer to God. He suffered for our sins, so when you come here and you are incarnated over and over and over again, you do that so that you're liberated. You can help people, the compassion comes in. But if you cannot get that right, you're going to, ascended masters choose not to come back if they don't want to, but a person...
Those ascended masters can come back, but there's a limit that they reach when they decide not to come back. They're already smart enough, but you have like some people, I mean, when they talk about, when I say, Lindsay, Ryan, man, you guys are an old soul. I'm not saying it because you guys are old. I'm saying it because you guys are, you're young, but when I talk to you, you guys are so smart. Like you've been old. Your soul has traveled through so many lives that when I tell you, like you tell me a story about the war, it's like you've been there. You are very focused, and not like you talk to, let's say, a teenager and who's very out there, not together. They sound so immature. They don't have that. They're not an old soul. So that's where you get the term, you're an old soul, is because of past lives. So that's where it comes from.
Well, past lives always, coincides with karma. It does, because what happens is when you come back here, like in numerology, you have your life path, your essence, your karma. And they say, do you have a karmic debt? So, you have your negative karma and your positive karma. What you want to do is when people come back here into this life over and over again, when they reincarnate, what they're trying to do is get their life, right. So for something that they did in the past that wasn't fulfilling enough, let's just say that I was in the past, and I was mean to everybody. I was very selfish. So when I come back into this life, I have a karmic debt. And so in order to wash that debt, I have to pretty much be liberated. I have to find myself.
Well, it's basically opening up your soul and cleansing it, and so you can ascend to that next level.
And not have to come back here
But like
anymore.
I said before, you have these people who choose to come back over and over again. But like I said, there is a limit. All right. Once you come back and you acquire and incarnate to a body, that body's not going to be firing all cylinders. However, you'll be all in there in your mind, but you're going to have to suffer the consequence because there's other people who are just incarnating for the second time who needs a vessel, a perfect vessel. So that's why you have all these people who are so smart, but they have some kind of physical deficiency to them, but they are savants. These people don't read music. They're great in math. They do everything. And I bet you these people are masters. They've been through life so many times, but yet they love it so much, they just don't get the full thing anymore, but they're still in there. So that's what I'm talking about that subconscious. You have a different lockbox for your memories, and that's for today. This is from when you were at birth. Then you have the subconscious. This is the main hard drive of your entire existence in this world, the next world, and millennia. I mean, since the beginning. You have the combination, however that combination is in the box. So what happens with a hypnotist, they help you unlock that box. And when you get good at it, then you tap into these lives. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to now talk about past lives. Since you get the idea now how the conscious and subconscious works, now we'll put them together and get into the whole past life regression when we return right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
You're listening to the Paranormal and Beyond. Join us at 731-1230. That's 731-1230. Lindsay and Michael return after this. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Your ticket to the unknown is at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Knights with a K, Paranormal Research Society.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Knights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, you're going to believe. Welcome back to the Paranormal and Beyond. Join us at 731-1230. Here again, Lindsay and Michael.
Welcome back to the Paranormal and Beyond. If you're just tuning in, we are talking about self-hypnosis and past life regression. But remember to check us out at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. All right, now let's get into the past life hypnosis part. All right.
Okay, so people go and do get hypnosis, which is called past life regression therapy. And what they do is there's something, they think there's something wrong with them because there's memories that are triggering in their mind and they don't know where it's coming from. It just came all of a sudden. It's like things like from even ancient Inca days or Egyptians where they remember, where they think that they were there at that time.
It's coming from their subconscious. It's
right.
From that master hard drive.
And they don't know if they're, if there's something chemically wrong with them in their brain or they're delusional or what. So they go to get past life regression because they want to see what they can pull. And a hypnotist's job is to, seek the answers and, put the clues together in the puzzle and see what they can decipher.
Well, there's a lot of hypnotists out there who are in the medical field for that, the whole psychology type of thing. But when you go to a hypnotist for past life, we have to look at the hypnotist first. I already just proved you can hypnotize yourself. Everybody does it, and everybody's probably saying, wow, that is right. That's how it feels to go under a spell, a trance, to phase out. You're under a spell, and your subconscious is speaking through you. Ryan, before we went on the break, was asking, what does it really, what does it do? When you go in a trance, it makes it more viable to go hypnotist. Well, think about it. When you go in a trance like that, you're not thinking of nothing. Your vision's not even working. So you are not corrupted with problems about financial bills, relationships, or anything like that. You are now an open vessel, and you just made an open road for your subconscious to start speaking.
So you think that this is the purpose of meditation and things like that?
Exactly.
Yes, like yoga.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when people master that and they say, I'm going to meditate, they go under a trance. They start speaking to their spirit guides. They're actually speaking to their subconscious who's like talking to them because, Your subconscious, if you're an old soul, has been millennia. I mean, we're talking about as far back as the earth goes. We're not talking about Bible 6,000-year-old stuff. We're talking about millions and millions, hundreds of millions of years that your life has been jumping back and forth and living generation through generation.
People do this also with, they master this with lucid dreaming. When they dream, they can go and tap into their subconscious and bring things to the table.
Okay, it's all the same thing, okay? This is the thing. We have to look at now the hypnotist if you're going to go under past regression. A lot of people do it because it sounds fun. You want to know your ancestry, and that's the whole theology of everything. And you have to have somebody who's good in that. And the whole ancestry, genealogy, everything. That's a good characteristic to look for somebody who's going to do a past life regression and have an understanding of that. Because there's a lot of stuff. When we talk about theology, they need to find out and listen very close to what you're speaking under. When you're under, the hypnotist's spell or your own spell is, okay, location. They need to know where you're at. Most important part is what time and date. Not even date or what era. Are you in the 14th century, 16th? Because they could pinpoint exactly what they're trying to pull out. Here's the thing. There is probably 75% people who went under a trance and been through a hypnosis for a past life regression, and a lot of them come back as somebody in the war. The reason why we look through our past, everything's war. There's been a lot of deaths, and people's lives have been cut short. So you would figure if they're going to come back, of course they would come back. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are probably wondering, do we come back in our families? I mean, in our whole lineage, our whole line? Not necessarily, okay? We come back in other forms and different levels. Let's say you had a problem doing this. Lindsay was talking about, making what's wrong right in the next life. Although you don't have a recollection because that would be cheating, but you do have that subconscious, which is in there.
We can change our religion, nationality, gender, race, political, and ethnic affiliation when we come back.
Absolutely. I mean, you're still held down by the limit, like I was talking about. There's always a limit, but you can make what's wrong right, but you won't know what you're doing. A lot of people state is that when you have a deja vu, and it's a really, really strong, like you've been there, you get the smell. You're like, I just did this, because you have. It is all part of that subconscious that's in you. It's that hard drive that sometimes leaks out. If you are in a state of relaxation and you're sitting there and you get into that mode, is basically when you have a deja vu or aha moment. Your mind is free from the clutter of today's society, and you're more liable to open up that and get the password to your thing. But it'll only be there for just maybe a couple seconds to a minute, and that box will slam shut again. Now, what a hypnotist does is hold that box open longer so they can rummage through it and take out what they need to. And when we're talking about past lives, then that's what we're trying to get out. Now, there's different things that hypnotist has to do. Once they have you under, is first they have to know all about that. They have to pay a lot of attention to where this person is really coming from, because they might not be tapping into the previous past lives. They can be going back, I would say the 1200s. But mostly everybody is a soldier at one point. Couple of weird occasions, some people are pets. And then when they reincarnate this life, they're a taxidermist. It's ironic.
So you think it's not limited to people? It could also include animals?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. There's been studies in that. But
you ever heard of a totem? Your totem animal?
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
So if we really look at ourselves and look at what we're good at, our skills, all right? Is that something we took from a previous life and took it here? Because we do take some characteristics of what we were doing before, and that's a given. We don't forget that. You have some people who pick up a guitar and can just wail on it and don't know. They're just a natural. That doesn't come because it's a gift. That was something you've done in your past before.
And it's trickled over.
Yeah, and it kind of spilt out. You're not supposed to know everything, because if you had past life regression is weird. You have it in the UFO field, see, abduction. You have it, when we're talking about somebody who was in a traumatic murder experience and they want to finger the killer, they put them under spell, because that burns an image into the hard drive, but not into your main mind. So there's a lot of stuff when it comes to past life. Now, when you ask me, so I do believe, and I'm a major proponent in past lives, I do. Because the way I look at it from a scientific viewpoint. And not only that, I look at it from what I've experienced and from what other people experience, what I've seen. And we talk about being hypnotized, and you separate the reality from the vanity that's on, Las Vegas shows. It's really there because people, like I said, hypnotizes themselves on a daily basis. You have people who just fade out and phase out and goes on a trance and starts speaking in tongues and doesn't realize what they're doing.
There has been numerous people, and you can actually look this up too, that has, felt like they've had a past life. And when they went under hypnosis and have come out of it, they've come back in, speaking foreign languages. Not only that, with an accent. There was a woman in the UK who came back. Actually, she wasn't in the UK. She was in America, and she came back speaking with a French accent.
Yeah, and it happens a lot. People, they go under this. It's like Pandora's box. Okay, you have people. That's why when you have a hypnotist like to quit smoking, what they do is put that thought into that box. So it becomes more of a subconscious state. A subconscious state is different from your conscious state. This is something that it has to be tapped into. Occasionally it does come out. But this is what hypnotists do when they're doing in that kind of sense, when they're putting subliminal message into you. But when we go into past lives, now we're trying to pull out stuff. We're trying to open that sock drawer and take out a couple pairs of socks. But what you hear is a lot of wars. And some of them are very traumatic because, like in the paranormal, when it comes to ghosts and all this, we're talking about hauntings, which is basically an energy imprint into our world. Like, remember I came in the studio, I heard a woman laughing, and it wasn't in none of the other stations because it was potted down too low.
Have you noticed anything since then?
No, just our voices right now.
Right.
But that's the whole thing. And same way in paranormal. But when it comes to that, a lot of murder situations are the most gruesome. And it's the biggest impact. I mean, it's the end of your life, your last breath. It's going to be superimposed into that strong box, that hard drive, your subconscious. So when people go back in a past life, a lot of them stumble upon that. They end up scared, screaming. They don't want to do it all over again. But that's natural because that is something that's going to come out eventually. Not
necessarily in a past life, but just a traumatic experience that they've pretty much been able to lock away and throw away the key. Let's just say somebody was raped as a child, or, some traumatic experiences happened as a child. And when they grew up, they don't even recall any of that happening. And then when they go under hypnosis, that actually just comes out. And then it pretty much changes them because they had no idea. And then now, they're in a new realm with this whole other, subconscious thing that just came forward, and now they have to deal with that.
Well, like I said, the humans only use 15% of the brain. It's like DNA. There's only 5% that's being used in a whole DNA double helix sequence. So we don't know what's going on. But now people are finding out that past regression is sort of the bee's knees. It sounds exciting. You want to find out. I mean, this is going further back than that whole Ancestry.com thing. You are going leaps and bounds to other lives, other religions, other everything, other worlds, basically. That's how far it's going now. And it's very exciting, but a lot of people tend to get scared because what's coming up is the darkest parts of the life. And those are the most important to get recorded. That's why when you have people who have precognition dreams about impending danger, it's always about danger. The good things get remembered and stored somewhere else where they come, I remember this. But the more terrifying things are the most traumatic that get locked away.
Well, those are the things you don't want to deal with.
Yeah, that's why like some people get in a major car accident. They don't even know what happened. And we're talking about something major, but you talk about going on a ride on Disneyland, you could recall everything. Oh, yeah, I was sitting behind this girl who was screaming, or watching a movie. This guy was loud in the movie theater. But we're talking about an accident. We're not talking about the moment of impact. We're talking up leading to impact. People are missing 2 minutes of that recollection. That's because that memory gets erased right away and put into your subconscious. So it's too much for the human body to, keep within them. Don't you know, if people fall out the sky on a plane, they die before they hit the ground, because that fear gets so strong that the body shuts down automatically. You die from fright. That is God's honest truth. They don't hit the ground. I'm talking about falling probably like 10,000, up in the air. They'll die before they hit the ground because they have a major heart attack. Memories are so strong when it comes to that. And every time there's a past life regression, these are the memories that come out, the memories that are locked away. So imagine somebody getting into a fatal accident in their past life, somebody getting murdered, that's so traumatic, getting, tortured to death, coming out into fruition on your couch. It's a very scary thing, not only to everybody watching it, but also to the hypnotist itself that's doing this. So usually they stop. They don't want to go any further.
The hypnotist too, he doesn't know what he's going to expect or she's going to expect when, she puts somebody under, then she has to decipher how to deal with that and what to tell this person when they come back.
And a lot of times when they go through that traumatic experience of regression, they're not really seeing if that is happening in a past life or in this life. So some hypnotists don't put the correlation together, and that's just bad, and they let it go the way it is. Some go all the way through it and find out that this is how they died in a past life. It's just like investigating at a haunting. You want, and you have this residual imprint of some woman screaming because she was murdered in this house in the 14th century, and it's always replaying.
See, what's going on in your life today, let's just say you're going through an emotional trauma in your life today, and you have no idea what's spawning this, this trauma, but you go into regression, and something in your past life which correlates with something that's going on today, could pretty much help you, because you can try to, the hypnotist or somebody else can try to pretty much cure that by not emotionally, but pretty much
it's kind of hard. See, it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
The reason why you might be open up Pandora's box to cure somebody from, let's say, having an episode who's scared of something, and is probably scared for a very good reason, because in their past life this is what killed him, to go under that and then relive their death all over again can put a very strain on their psyche and destroy them for the rest of their life in this carnation.
You're absolutely right, because it's a two-way street. Either and it's not always a hypnotist that can heal that person. You might need a clinical psychologist, then, because you don't know what you're bringing up. That person, when they go under hypnosis, it's very scary.
Well, it's simple. Okay, we have a lot of U.S. veterans who have post-traumatic stress from killing a lot of people or seeing a lot of their friends die in the war. Same thing. You talk to a vet who's been through that, they're not going to talk about it. They don't want to relive it. They're like, no, because it messes them up. I mean, they go home, they can't even sleep with their wives no more. They can't get a normal job. They have to go to the VA hospital and talk to some military, psychologist to get them straight. They're ruined for life. And these people end up committing suicide. And see, this is why you have that subconscious, and this is why memories get put in there. Your body, there's a limit to what your body can handle. And a bad memory can destroy and wreck Christmas for you for a long time.
There's also a situation where, for instance, there was one girl who claims that she was back in the 16th century, and she was reliving this nightmare that was going on over and over again, and she didn't know why. It kept coming to her, and she felt like she was living this, and she was actually there, and she had a past life. So she went ahead and did past life regression. Come to find out, her aunt, it was a book that she read, and she had suppressed those memories from this book that she read as a child, and it just started coming to her. And it was a book that her aunt had. So she was never, in that past life.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's why you have to have a good hypnotist who understands all the laws of hypnotizing somebody. And when they're dealing with past life regression, I don't care if you could put somebody under, because like I said, 98% of the population do it to themselves every day. The only thing I'm worried about is if I go under and I relive something so traumatic that I suppressed for a millennia, and you're going to bring it out of me, can you deal with it and not just sit there and laugh at me and be like, oh my God, and then end the whole regression, session?
But it's not, it does. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
So you think a hypnotist is always necessary, or do you think that there's certain types of people who are born already knowing that they have a past life?
It's funny because, it's a good thing you said that, because there's a Dr. Ian Stevenson who was a medical doctor and psychologist. So, he tried to do, and go on the science side. So instead of doing hypnosis, which he did for a long time, he's been studying this for 40 years, which is past life regression. He decided to go a different route, and he started studying over 3,000 kids who are below the age of 5 years old, who recalls that they had past lives. And he proved, scientifically that these people, that past lives does exist, because how do these small kids who are below 5 years old, can recall something of somebody living in a certain, era and actually being fact?
So you think children are more sensitive to...
Well, yeah.
Well, children are not tainted.
Because they're not corrupt.
They don't have a conscience yet.
So now their subconscious is more out there and open. That's why you have a lot of kids who are picking up things quick that they've never, a guitar, they're natural drummers. They're basically savants as kids, or they're smart, they're geniuses before they even hit school. It's because they're not tainted yet, and they're not corrupt by society, because we grow up in a society where everything is subliminal now. Put in your head, what to buy, where to go, where to get car insurance, now what healthcare to buy. You're being trained now to live off what society wants you. But if you can step away and clear your mind, that's why you have a lot of people who practice yoga meditation, because it separates their corrupted mind and detaches themselves from their body to tap into that subconscious and rediscover themselves in a different way they never did before.
So how mutable do you think souls are? Like, do you think the soul of Beethoven is going to be a composer forever, or do you think that someday Beethoven could just decide, I don't want to compose anymore, I'd like to paint? Well,
and I said this earlier too, everybody has, when they come back into if they want to incarnate and reincarnate back into this life, it's just like, when we live here, this is a school of knowledge. It's a school to learn, to get it right in order to ascend to the next level. And as far as like Beethoven, you can come back here. You may have a remnant or an imprint when you go into that next life of maybe you like music. But again, you can change religion. You can change, ethnicity. Like I said, you can change, politics, whatever you want. But you may have an imprint that may, go correlate into the next life with that next person.
It's really up to you. If you have unfinished business, not like in the sense like that, but if you enjoy life and you felt you're not worthy to cross into that next, let's say ascension, that next dimensional plane, that fourth dimension, because we only live in a three-dimensional world here. To go in that fourth dimension, then you want to come back, but you're not going to remember everything, but your traits, your strongest traits about you are going to show, and they'll definitely show, because those do come out. Like I said, there's some people who speak different languages. They're like, I've never studied this. People who are just musicians off the bat, people who are just good at what they do without any physical training per se. These are people who are old souls and have taken the past with them through, we don't even know how long our soul goes back to. But that, to me, it's still theoretical to mainstream science. But to a lot of people who believe in the mystical and supernatural, it is what it is. And like I said, if you train yourself, and if you ever get in a trance like that one day, but it's going to be hard, because you're going to need a second party to basically speak to your subconscious, unless you can meditate very good, or you can do it yourself. You will discover a lot about you, and usually they come in the form of your spirit guides. They call them that. They call it their basically their guardian angels. It's basically their subconscious that has all the information that one person can ever need in their life. So what do you think about that, Ryan?
I think it's very enlightening.
It is. Well, that's our show for you today. Join us back here Wednesday while we enlighten you some more. And everybody out there, enjoy your Tuesday. And we'll be right back here at 11 o'clock to midnight Wednesday on the Paranormal Beyond on KLAV 1230 AM. Everybody have a good day. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
And happy birthday, Michael.
All righty.